Greater things are yet to come. Greater things still to be done in this day. Oh, and greater things are yet to come. Greater things are still to be done in this day.
I'm reading from page 21 of Working with Released Prisoners. People coming out of prison have difficulties in their lives. That might seem obvious, but it needs to be clearly stated. Those of us in the evangelical and charismatic parts of God's kingdom are apt to think, and we often assert, that Jesus is the answer. By this, we seem to mean that if you come to Christ and believe in him for salvation, that salvation will fix everything. This is an example of magical thinking. We're not sure how it's supposed to work, but we feel that somehow it should. True, Jesus' sacrifice at Calvary cleanses us from sin. If we believe in him, we can stand holy before God. The vilest offender who truly believes, that moment from Jesus a pardon receives. We're saved from God's wrath, and we share in the marvellous inheritance of Christ. Trust in Jesus Christ, for salvation removes our guilt and our shame and restores our dignity. The fall, in the sense of our isolation from God, is reversed. We are saved. We have eternal life. This is brilliant. But what salvation doesn't do, at least not immediately, is remove the consequences of our evil or unwise actions. Consider David and his sin with Bathsheba in 2 Samuel 11 and 12. He committed adultery and murder, and lied and manipulated. When confronted with his sin by Nathan the prophet, he confessed it and repented before God. Psalm 51. Nevertheless, his actions seriously affected his and many other people's lives. There were many far-reaching consequences that he had to live with. A person who has come to Christ in prison might have made extraordinary steps in their faith. They might know the Bible well and have identifiable spiritual gifts and a defined ministry. They might be an able worship leader or a prolific evangelist. They may have led more people to Christ than you have. But none of this means that they've addressed the attitudes, behaviours and core problems that took them to prison in the first place. As we said above, the fact that they've just come out of prison in itself means that they're facing challenges. Some of these challenges will be basic, to do with self-care and coping with life. Some will be more specialised, such as drug dependency or mental illness. Or there may be issues connected with offending behaviour or a risk that that person poses to particular groups of people. In order to provide effective support for released prisoners, you have to be able and prepared to engage with these things. To admit that a person finds it hard to control their moods or to get ahead of a long-term drug habit is not to doubt their faith or to impugn the efficacy of Christ's sacrifice. It's just being realistic. The Bible tells us that fervent love will cover a multitude of sins, 1 Peter 4:8. It doesn't say anything about that love being blind. On the other hand, if we shrink back in fear and hold our guests at arm's length, or put them in a safeguarding box, we won't be showing love at all. We'll leave them more hurt and alienated than they were to start with. We must love wisely. Churches typically fall into two equal and opposite errors when confronting released prisoners. When hearing that a new attender is an ex-offender on licence, they might be inclined to hit the big red panic button and reach for their safeguarding manual, leaving the ex-offender feeling even more isolated and stigmatised, a response motivated by fear. Alternatively, they might make them into some kind of celebrity, smothering them in love and attention, and having them share their faith stories at the morning service. This is dangerous. It leaves the released prisoner disorientated because trust is something they find hard. And soon they're going to be let down again. The church can't deliver on the promises it seems to be making. It's also dangerous because you really don't know who this person is or what they might do. What happens when they relapse into their heroin addiction? There should be a middle way. A way motivated by the gospel of Christ, but also informed by an understanding of what the pressures released prisoners might face and how to provide support for them. And that understands that this is not someone else's problem.